A very warm welcome. I know you've just rushed across,
Yes.
but let me introduce you to Belle Ribeiro-Addy, who's agreed to come here at very short notice, for which we're very grateful. Belle was elected in the 2019 general election as MP for Streatham, and she was appointed Shadow Immigration Minister on the 24th of January. So hopefully we'll have a lot of interaction over the next few months. Okay, thank you very much. A warm welcome to Belle.
Thank you very much for inviting me in, and sorry we had quite a late vote in Parliament. We all know that immigration detention has been a scandal for a number of years, and it puts an immeasurable burden on the mental health of migrants, breaking up families, and leaves people in dehumanising conditions. But all that's shown is that this government will stop at nothing to maintain its hostile environment, and that's whether it's deporting black British citizens, turning away child refugees, detaining the victims of rape and sex trafficking, which we have legislation to say that we shouldn't do. So with this in mind, whilst I am proud to start my role as Shadow Immigration Minister, I'm not deluded about the task that's in front of me and that's in front of us. And I'm committed to unapologetically fighting for migrants' rights, because they are all of our rights. Now, unfortunately, we did not make it into government, but Labour in government would have begun by closing the worst detention centres. So we would have started with closing down Yarl's Wood and Brookhouse, and we would have moved on to end the scandal of indefinite detention. We are the only country in Europe, I believe, perhaps wider, that would detain people for more than 28 days. And we'd actually begun discussing with BID a plan to, and a feasible, completely feasible plan to end immigration detention. We do not actually have to do it this way. So all detention policy all detention is a public policy failure. It's expensive at a time when you hear people talking about austerity. As you heard May say, it costs a lot of money to keep people detained. But then when it comes down to it, over 50% of those that are detained are eventually released. And when you see that at the moment all of these detention centres are being run by private companies, it's literally dehumanising people and leaving those in those conditions for profit, not because they actually have to be there. And so it's an outrage that, as well as being in these dehumanising detention centres, people are actually kept in prison. And we really need to be vigilant about this, just because of the prioritisation that I mentioned. I'm really concerned about the Americanisation of our prison system and our immigration detention system, and the way in which people are put in those conditions for profit is going to become a real problem. And I don't believe that services like that should ever be under private ownership. It should completely be public, and it should be regulated in a way. It's been very difficult for people to take action against organisations like Serco and G4S because they are private companies. Now, it's an accident of birth that, I was able to be born here and hold British citizenship, and anybody else who may have been born here or born to immigrants who came over here and have been able to regularise their status. So I always find it a disgrace that migration is self-entreated as a crime. It's not your fault where you are born. And so this ends up being double punishment for foreign offenders who have served their time and done nothing to deserve further penalty. Now, in the office of the Shadow Home Secretary, who I actually used to work for as a political advisor, we've dealt with a number of these cases, and just the barriers we face when we're reporting these to the Home Secretary and trying to get people out of prison has been very, very difficult. And I can't think of a single time in which we were successful. So the use of a punishment for what's supposed to be a short-term procedural necessity should offend the decency of all of us. I'm particularly concerned about the fact that, when you commit a crime, and there are levels of crimes, I completely understand that, but we all make mistakes in life. And, as you've heard before, when you make them when you're younger, it's really difficult for you to continue paying for them. I believe in some sort of rehabilitation I'm not sure about the way prisons are at the moment, but there should be some sort of rehabilitation, and you should have an opportunity to turn your life around. But we all know that if you do something and you come from a particular background, you're more likely to be criminalised in a certain way. So if you come from my area and you're caught with drugs, you may find yourself in trouble. But if you're a Tory leadership candidate and you're caught with drugs, you may find yourself the next Prime Minister. And that, it's completely unfair. There are some things that we need to, look at in terms of, and find a way to make some more equality in how we sentence people, firstly. How we judge them for what they do, what is considered a crime, and then how we try and rehabilitate them. Now, keeping migrants in prison beyond their sentence is a severe restriction on liberty, and I'm sure others would have raised the moving case of Migrants. Not sure I pronounced that right. And it's examples like this which must motivate politicians to finally act. And I'm very encouraged by the fact that there are more and more politicians that are coming on board, even some of our colleagues in the Conservative Party. As I said, I don't think things are going to be easy in terms of changing things, but we made some real progress in the last Parliament. Now, someone like myself, I never actually set out to be a politician. I spent my whole adult life as an activist, anti-racist and migrant rights campaigner, but I aim to be no different in Parliament. And as the Shadow Immigration Minister, I aim to dedicate myself to resisting any further attempts by the Tory government to implement more cruel policies designed to throw migrants under the bus purely for political gain. But for that, we are going to need everybody's help. There are no situations in which we have won gains for migrants which haven't involved a mass movement and members of the community working with politicians and organisations to move things forward. So I've also recently become the new Vice Chair of the APPG on immigration detention, and you'll all be very, very pleased to know that there are members of Parliament right now that are ready and poised to jump on the next immigration bill and to make as many amendments to it as possible. The first one being to reduce immigration detention to a maximum of 28 days. And, we've seen in the past year, especially since the exposure of the Windrush scandal, that immigration detention has already gone down 50%. Already gone down roughly 50%, which is showing more and more that there are less reasons to keep people in these situations. So it is a very, very difficult time, but I do believe that we can make those strides forward. I'm very sorry. I am going to have to leave you straight away. What I would say is that because I am the Shadow Immigration Minister, I have to be able to make interventions in Parliament, but because I'm also a new MP, I can't do that until I give my maiden speech, which I have been procrastinating about for the past few weeks. So I have to do it tomorrow. I'm going to run off and I'm going to write it so that next week I can be in Parliament arguing with the Tories on the front bench about their disgraceful policies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.